So let's now pivot. I know we've been spending a lot of time talking about President Biden. Let's talk about President Trump a little bit, because do you think the polls regarding him are accurate? Because in 2016, as we know, he was underestimated. In 2020, he overperformed the polls, and now he's winning against President Biden by a sustained margin for a sustained period of time. So do you think the polls are accurate? What does that look like?
I think that people are becoming more and more comfortable saying that they're supporting Trump. The more and more momentum he builds and the more and more resilience he shows in the polls. So I would expect the polls to be fairly close. Historically, you're right that polls have undercounted Trump's support. And especially phone polls, when people are around other people and they don't necessarily want to say that they support Trump, online polls are closer. But I feel that we are getting an accurate representation of the fact that the electorate is leaning towards Trump. It's going to be a close election, at least in terms of the popular vote. The big question is, how does it translate in the Electoral College? And right now, what we're seeing in the state polling is Trump far ahead of Biden in many battleground states, which are essential to victory, sometimes by 6 points, by 8 points, and even beyond. If that holds, then it'll be a sweep in the Electoral College. And so what I would say is that we have to pay as much attention, if not more, to the state polls than we are to the national polls to really get a clear sense of the direction of the election. And I think the state polls are showing us that Trump is doing very, very well.
And what about Nikki Haley voters? Does he have to be concerned about them anymore? Because as we know, a Nikki Haley Republican is very different from a Donald Trump Republican. But are those Nikki Haley Republicans watching that debate from Thursday night and saying, hey, listen, even though I said I'm a never Trumper, I'm going to hold my nose and I'm going to vote for Trump because he's the better option than Joe Biden?
Well, I think that what we're seeing, given also the sustained fundraising, is that this is not going to be a low turnout election. People seem to be very energized. It seems to be a similar election to 2020, where it's a high turnout election. In a situation like that, if you're in the Trump camp, you want to make sure that you are pulling as many Republican voters as possible and not allowing these voters to lapse. A key consideration here is who he will pick as vice president. We have done polling together with Forbes on Trump's vice presidential pick, and while on the surface Republicans say that they prefer Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, actually when you ask the question, would you be more or less likely to vote for Trump if he picks fill in the blank in terms of name, Marco Rubio and Tim Scott give him the most traction. Rubio with Latinos, and obviously Scott with black voters. And I think that his vice presidential pick will go a long way in securing the soft Republican vote. But when you step back and you look at whose vote is stronger, whose support is stronger, Trump's support is significantly stronger right now than Biden's support. You see a lot more soft Biden voters than you see soft Trump voters.
Thursday night's debate really seems like one of those touch points in an election that totally can change everything. A, do you agree? And B, what are you looking out for next between now and November?
Well, I think, again, if the Democrats are going to stay the course and keep President Biden, their hope will be that this blows over and the narrative changes very quickly. So I would expect a flurry of activity from the Biden administration and the Biden campaign to change the narrative very quickly, focused on issues, focused on the things that voters want but didn't get during the debate because of the poor performance and the lack of focus on solutions that both of the candidates had. So I would expect sustained activity. On the other hand, you see even today Judge Meckham in New York pushing the sentencing of Donald Trump to take stock of some of the recent Supreme Court decisions on presidential immunity. So you see that the noose is loosening around Trump, and It'll be very interesting to see what the Trump camp comes up with next in terms of an announcement. I think the vice president announcement is really the next big tentpole for them, and that's an announcement that, while I don't think it can hurt President Trump either way, making a wise choice can certainly help him. And it seems like that choice is somewhere between Marco Rubio and Tim Scott right now, based on the polling.